Just as the JetBlue Spirit saga is finally winding down, the aviation world has been rocked by the news of yet another huge airline merger. This time, it's Alaska buying Hawaiian. Yup, you heard me right. Alaska Airlines, the flag carrier of the state of Alaska, has offered to buy Hawaiian Airlines for a whopping $1.9 billion. This is arguably the most ironic airline merger, considering Hawaii's reputation for being a warm, tropical tourist destination and Alaska being freezing and sparsely populated. But rest assured that their brands will remain separate, meaning that if you were to fly from mainland USA to Hawaii, you would still board a Hawaiian Airlines plane, the only difference being that it is now owned and run by Alaska Airlines. This is pretty rare, as operating two separate airlines is much more challenging. Then again, Alaska has no other choice than to do so, because let's face it, besides Alaskans, who on earth wants to fly Alaska Airlines to Hawaii? Jokes aside, Hawaiian isn't even a major carrier. They're the 15th largest airline in North America, serving just 10 million passengers in 2022, a mere quarter of the 40 million that flew Alaska that same year. They have zero market presence outside the state of Hawaii and are struggling to compete against Southwest for routes on their own home turf. So what could Alaska possibly have to gain from buying Hawaiian? As it turns out, quite a lot. You see, Alaska Airlines' biggest hub is not actually in Alaska, but rather in Seattle, Washington, and for good reason too, since hardly anyone lives in Alaska. Seattle, on the other hand, has much higher demand, enabling Alaska to operate an extensive route network from their hub. But it does have its limitations. Seattle-Tacoma International is rapidly approaching max capacity, driving up fares and causing longer delays. Needless to say, this makes it difficult for Alaska to serve more destinations and grow as an airline. That was the reasoning behind their decision to merge with Virgin America back in 2016, which allowed them access to the critical hubs of San Francisco and LAX. But as Alaska quickly found out, routes from those hubs are extremely competitive, especially on those high-demand transcontinental routes to East Coast cities. SFO is dominated by United Airlines, and LAX serves as a hub for all three legacy carriers, American, Delta, and United. For those of you who saw my JetBlue Spirit video, which I'll link above, you may remember that it's pretty difficult for smaller carriers like JetBlue, or in this case Alaska, to compete with well-established carriers that have hubs all over the country, and as a result, a huge advantage when it comes to connecting passenger traffic. So if all the hubs are already taken by bigger airlines that got there first, how on earth can Alaska compete? Well, the short answer is they can't, but when you look a little deeper, there's one major hub that big airlines haven't taken over yet, and that hub happens to be Hawaii. For as long as time itself, Hawaii has always been one of those iconic vacation destinations with millions of tourists flocking there every year. And it's not just from mainland America. Hawaii is conveniently located right in between Japan and the US, with the flight from Tokyo Narita to Honolulu being just 6.5 hours, although a return flight back to Narita takes well over 9 hours due to particularly strong jet streams in the Pacific, but that's a story for another day. The point remains that Hawaii has high demand for leisure travel, but no major carrier has established a hub there yet, making it ideal for Alaska to expand their operations in Hawaii. But this raises an even bigger question. Why would Hawaiian want to give up their home turf to Alaska? Well, despite Hawaii being a vacation hotspot, their largest airline has been bleeding money ever since the COVID pandemic due to a number of challenges. First, it was Hawaii's strict COVID-19 restrictions for out-of-state travelers that discouraged vacation travel. Then, after the COVID restrictions were lifted and travel demand finally returned to pre-pandemic levels in 2023, Hawaii was ravaged by the devastating Maui wildfires, leading to travel demand plummeting. And recently, Pratt & Whitney announced a major engine recall for hundreds of A320neos due to contaminated powder metal used to make parts of the engine that could result in microcracks and fatigue. This led to 2 to 4 of Hawaiian's A320neos being out of service at any given point in time, resulting in much more flight cancellations as Hawaiian depends on these fuel-efficient Airbus narrowbodies for flights to the West Coast as well as inter-island routes. This probably wouldn't have been as bad if Boeing wasn't delaying the deliveries of the Dreamliners they ordered years ago. And to compound all of their other problems, Southwest began ramping up routes to Hawaii beginning in 2019, taking customers away from Hawaiian by attracting them with lower fares. No wonder Hawaiian has been struggling to break even for a while now, At this point, the $1.9 billion offer from Alaska must sound real nice to Hawaiian, and Alaska's extensive route network in the west coast can help connect even more passengers to Hawaii through a merged Alaska-Hawaiian. Perhaps even more importantly, the deal would add Hawaiian to the One World Alliance, which both Alaska and American are currently part of. So not only would the merger enable Alaska to expand internationally to places like Japan and Australia through Hawaii, but it would also allow them to tap into a customer base of connecting travelers from the Asia Pacific by code sharing with airlines like Qantas and JAL. The merger is likely to face scrutiny from the DOJ, but has a high chance of succeeding given that A, it won't eliminate much competition as only 3% of their routes overlap, and B, Alaska and Hawaiian offer similar onboard products, so Hawaiian being run by Alaska won't result in such a dramatic increase in fares as the JetBlue Spirit merger. However, Alaska still faces one big challenge. Unlike JetBlue and Spirit, Alaska and Hawaiian don't fly the same aircraft types. While Alaska's fleet consists of 737s and E-175s for regional routes, Hawaiian's is all over the place, flying a mix of 717s, A320neos, and A330s, as well as the Dreamliners they're expected to receive in 2024. Of course, this isn't necessarily a problem, but for an airline like Alaska that has streamlined its operations around the 737, flying different aircraft types can increase their operational costs. But then again, Alaska isn't buying Hawaiian for their fleet, but rather for their hub and the route network. Just as they did with Virgin America, Alaska is likely to eventually phase out the A320s they gain in favor of newer 737s. The merger is expected to complete in 12 to 18 months, after which Alaska and Hawaiian would control 50% of the market share in Hawaii and 9% nationally, cementing its place as the US's 5th largest carrier or 6th largest in the likely event that JetBlue's acquisition of Spirit is approved. So it's only a matter of time until your next flight to Hawaii is run by Alaska Airlines. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video interesting, subscribe for more.